Good evening, and welcome to this meeting of the Twin Lakes School Board Corporation Board of Trustees. If you'd all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, thank you all for coming. The record will show that Mr. Scott Andrews was unable to attend this evening, and Gloria Kennard is present but is sitting out of camera shot due to self-quarantine, and so we want to recognize her as being here. We have some emergency-related issues to the COVID-19 crisis to discuss. At this point in time, Mr. Galvin, I would take it at your pleasure to wherever you would like to begin.
Okay, so first off this evening, and I'm going to ask you to pull up the resolution, and in addition to that, behind there are your some notes of just about the response from the school corporation at this point in time. The resolution is mainly dealing with the first topic on your notes, and that is our compensation. What I have done, and I feel like that this was the wishes of the board, mainly because of the e-learning that we've done for the past, I think 3 or 4 years. The resolution that you're looking at this evening mainly approves or permits the corporation to compensate all employees at their normal pay rate and normal expected hours until the end of the fiscal year on June 30th, 2020, or until the state of Indiana stops funding school corporations. Employees will not lose any type of vacation days, personal days, or sick days unless they choose to use these days for normal leaves of absence. So if they were already expecting to go on vacation and they want to use their vacation time, they can do that. So what this is mainly doing is this keeps our people from not losing any money whatsoever. It allows them to stay whole. And that I think is very, very important in this time for us to do this. So this resolution permits us to do that.
And this covers wages, retirements, insurance, the
Yes.
entire compensation package, not
Correct.
just wages.
So it says, why don't we just go ahead and read the resolution so that everybody understands it and stuff, okay? So whereas the COVID-19 has been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization and federal authorities and is currently spreading throughout the United States of America and the state of Indiana, whereas the safety of students, employees, families, and visitors of the Twin Lakes School Corporation, the school corporation remains the school corporation's overriding concern, and whereas the Center for Disease Control has recommended discontinuing meetings of up to 50, and you can see that that's now changed to actually 10 people to prevent the spread of COVID-19, and recognizing that school closures play an important role as part of a larger community mitigation strategy. And whereas encouraging students and employees to stay home and refrain from congregating by closing schools, implementing distance learning programs, assigning remote work duties, and providing leave from work, including paid leave, facilitates community efforts to restrict the spread of COVID-19. And whereas the school corporation continues to monitor closely the spread of COVID-19 in Indiana with updates from international, federal, state, and local governmental agencies. Now therefore be it resolved by this Board of School Trustees for the Twin Lakes School Corporation as follows. To prevent the spread of COVID-19 and reduce community spread as recommended by federal and state authorities, the superintendent is authorized to implement all measures to ensure the safety, health, and well-being of our students and staff in all aspects of the operation of the school district, including but not limited to seeking waivers from Indiana or federal agencies, adding e-learning days, closing schools, providing appropriate compensation of employees and paid leave days, with collaboration from the TLCTO as necessary, and assigning remote work duties. The board further ratifies actions taken by the superintendent prior to this resolution in response to the COVID-19 that include schools closures, paid leave for employees, implementing of e-learning days, and appropriate distribution of meals to students. This resolution adopted this 20th day of March 2020 by at least a majority vote of the entire board in a public meeting. And this was provided by John Mays, is who this was, and I did show it to the TLCTO yesterday in our meeting, so if they were aware of it.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, do we need to change the date?
Yeah, that needs to say that 19.
Should be 19.
Thank you.
And I would
Probably
recommend,
that it's the 50 to 10 now, or does it make any difference?
I think we might as well correct it.
I think we should, because it's a mandate.
So, other questions or
And what I'm doing is making those changes on this one that Shane and Scott will sign, so.
Shane and Gloria,
so?
or second.
Are we closed down till May 1st? Is that accurate?
That's from the governor.
That's from the governor.
So assistant secretary would be, I believe, the next person, which would be Mike, I believe.
I am?
I believe so. So we will have you sign for Mr. Andrews this evening.
Okay. I
But-
thought that was for the financial group. I was the secretary group. Okay.
But yeah, Governor Holton made that
Yeah.
press conference today
Thank you,
about
gentlemen.
noon.
Appreciate it.
Any further questions or discussion of this resolution?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Maury. Been properly moved and seconded that we adopt this resolution in response to COVID-19. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries 6-0.
Now,
Okay.
we'll look at the staple notes. We'll kind of start going through what all we've been doing. So, support staff, custodians at this point, we have asked for them to continue disinfecting the schools over spring break if they are not in the high-risk category, sick, or dealing with childcare. On Friday, March 20th, and the week, so tomorrow, as well as the week following spring break, the week of March 30th, 2020, custodial staff will not report. They will work during spring break and continue cleaning. Beginning the week of April the 6th, 2020, the custodians would continue cleaning all facilities. And keep in mind that as I share this stuff, this is all dependent upon us not having ordered from the state or federal government a shelter in place.
Question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Certain schools their staff was told that that's their job to disinfect and clean their own rooms.
Yeah, it is not their job. So,
Need to be passed on to Meadowlawn.
okay, thank you. So I spoke to Denny this afternoon, and East Lawn and Oak Lawn is pretty well done, being cleaned. So those custodians will be pulled in town to begin working on those. The other thing that we also did is Denny heard and read someplace that ozone machines also helps to remove. So we have an ozone machine, and Charlie with Twin Lakes Painting let us borrow his. So we're gonna begin running those at East Lawn and rotating those around and then bringing them into town, so.
How much area do they cover?
We're putting them in a classroom,
Okay.
so I'm not sure exactly how long Denny's running those, so.
Because the high school in Roosevelt's quite large.
Cycle them through the
Yeah,
building.
cycle them through the buildings,
Okay.
so.
Not to try and make lemonade out of lemons, but are there any maintenance projects that Denny struggles to have time for that, if it's appropriate and safe for our people to be in the building, that we could take this unexpected opportunity to jump on?
Yeah, so that April the 6th, 2020, at that point in time, we're gonna start mainly doing summer cleaning projects. So that's kind of what we'll begin working on, is pulling classrooms out, begin working through that process and stuff like that. So,
Teachers have already been told to get all their things
mhm.
and take things off bulletin boards and.
We've not done the bulletin boards yet, and the reason why is we hope we'll be able to come back. So we didn't want it to look too bad. What we mainly asked them to do is clear the desks off, remove any personal items they wanted, clear off the shelves along the windows and stuff. So,
That may be incorrect, that might be what.
That's what I'm wondering, John.
okay,
Yeah.
I believe that's what they
Yeah.
were told.
yeah. So, and I'll share that a little bit further down our teachers and
Thank
stuff.
you.
So, bus drivers. Any more questions on custodians? Okay. Bus drivers. Once again, if they were not in the high-risk category, sick, or dealing with childcare, we asked for them to disinfect their school buses over the past 2 days. They will not be expected to perform any further duties at this time, but still receive compensation. Okay.
Mike, you might share with the board how many of our bus drivers fell into that high-risk category due to age or
Quite
health-related
a few
issues.
of them. And, let me get down through there
course.
too, cause I got that addressed.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Paraprofessionals, if they were not in a high-risk category, sick or dealing with childcare, we asked them to report to schools yesterday and today to assist with disinfecting and preparing student learning packets or food packets. They will not be expected to perform any further duties at this time, but would still receive compensation. So, and as we continue to move along, we may say to our support staff, hey, if you wanna come in and help out and clean or something like that, you're more than welcome to do that, so,
Knowing our community, I think that we'll have more than enough people to
Yes.
step forward.
yeah, I agree. Office staff, so this is for our school office staff. If they were not in a high-risk category, sick or dealing with childcare, we asked them to report to schools yesterday and today. On Friday, March 20th, tomorrow, as well as next week, office staff will not report. We are in the process of trying to establish capabilities for treasurers to remote into accounts to pay bills. They have a different accounting system at the schools than we do here at the central office. They use what's called SNS, so we're trying to work on that. And depending on school, following the midweek of March 30th, 2020, office staff may be asked to alternate covering the office and working from home. And what I mean depending on school is meaning, are we gonna be doing e-learning activities? Are we just gonna be using our waivers days all the way up until March 1st, or how are we gonna do that? So we'll be working through that. I'm meeting with my principals tomorrow because of the governor's announcement today to see how are we wanting to use the rest of this month. We have a schedule, and you'll look at that schedule here in a moment, but we kinda wanna see what we wanna do. Food service staff, and I wanna stop here for just a moment and give a huge shout out to Pat Berger, Jen Craig, and all of their staff. They have, and I don't want to belittle anyone that's helped out, but they have truly in this process been our heroes and providing meals to our kids. So this has been phenomenal, what they've done, and I'm just going to flip over real quick on food distribution. Yesterday we made 575 sets of 4 meals for a total of 2,300 meals. We used 329 sets yesterday. I know that we did more today than we did yesterday, so this has been a great community service for us to make sure that our kids are being fed and stuff. So Mrs. Berger's working with her staff to prepare food packets tomorrow and Monday for next week. So beginning on Monday next week, we're moving to 1 distribution per week. It will be for the full week, so it will be 10 meals. There'll be a breakfast and a lunch, and this is for anyone 18 years or younger. So we were very fortunate because we are already part of the summer meal program, so we did not have to get a waiver to kind of show you how the government is still kind of getting in the way. Frontier has not been approved for a waiver yet. So they're still trying to work through that process to start meals there. So we are very blessed to be able to have that, and we were able to get moving fairly quickly. The biggest issue that we had was getting all of our food into one centralized location. And on Monday, Pat, Jen, and I went to East Lawn and Oak Lawn. We moved food to Roosevelt. Tuesday, her and Jen went through and figured out a menu of what we were going to be able to serve and put into those meals and stuff, and we got started on Wednesday. So then mainly on Monday, so what will happen going forward is Fridays and Mondays, and the food distributions would be on Mondays. I will tell you this much, please say your prayers. This is a big concern. We put our milk order in, and unfortunately next week everything's going to be strawberry. The milk is running low, really, and so we want to be able to continue to provide our kids with meals. This is very important, I think. So, central office staff, they're going to be working remotely or coming into central office as needed during the weeks of March 23rd and March 30th. So next week during spring break, as well as the following week, where they're going to be working remotely and coming in when they need to come in. Carmen has set up of where she's monitoring the corporation phone remotely. Herman's working with her to answer voicemails and to call people back and, through email and stuff like that. So that's how she's handling that. I also wanna give kudos to Holly because, even though it sounds very simple, that we're just gonna pay everybody, it's still a note-taking, how am I going to handle all this stuff, mess for her. So, we're still talking through all those things. She came in this afternoon and said, hey, I thought about this, how should we handle this and stuff. So, I mean, this is still kind of a, and I will also say too, I don't think I put this anywhere in the notes, we have been, ordered by the state to track every cost connected to the coronavirus. So Kim is doing that and is responsible for that tracking. So, so that's being taken care of through her. And I'm assuming, I don't know if at the end of this, we will submit those costs and receive some sort of like, financial stimulus from the government or what, but they've asked us to do that, so.
Are those additive costs or?
Yes, it's mainly added to the cost. So like, for example, if someone is being paid, but they're off because of illness, or, they're off because they're in high-risk category, or because they're having to handle childcare connected to the coronavirus, then that would be a cost that we would turn in. So, because that's directly linked to the coronavirus.
Going right along with sort of what Mike just asked, I know we're giving our kids food, but other corporations, if they don't do food, would they be allowed to come in and we'd be able to turn that into the state if we need to supply food for them? I don't want
Good
any
question,
kid
John. I
going
know.
without.
And I don't know about that, because the other thing, I wanna come back really quickly to the milk, because that brings up a good question, because if they can't put milk in the lunches, then it's not reimbursable from the federal government. So that's the key reason why milk has gotta be there, so, but that's a good question, and I'd have to ask Pat to contact her person at the state to see what we can do. with
Because
that.
like you just mentioned, Frontier doesn't have that waiver, and there's a possibility if those kids can't get food, I don't wanna see anybody go without.
Yeah, exactly right.
Would it,
Exactly right.
if the milk situation comes to pass, Mike, and I don't wanna borrow trouble, but I think that would be a good opportunity to email the board at that time and say, please make a decision on, are we gonna fund this at a rainy day till we get milk again? Or do we choose to not? And we'll deal with that as it comes.
Right.
You were mentioning extra costs now. Holly is, from what I saw in one of your notes to us, Holly is also in charge now of the lunch requests. Were those going to Holly, or are they going to someone in the food
Going to
service?
Pat, aren't they?
Yeah, those
They're
are
going to
going to.
Pat?
Yeah, so
Okay.
what's happening is Marcus has created an online form,
Okay,
and so like, for example, the form for Monday, was posted this afternoon, and it will stay up there until Sunday at midnight. And then Pat then it's a Google form, so it automatically drops it into an Excel spreadsheet for her, and then she just runs that, and it tells her how many lunches she needs to
so
prepare.
the kitchen staff
The
is
kitchen
tracking
staff
that,
is
we're not
tracking all
doing
that.
that here.
No,
And as
no.
they go through the line, they're checked off, how
Yeah.
many they need, then they're passed on to the,
Yeah.
next spot for distribution.
And that has worked beautifully. I was really concerned that we were gonna have like this huge long line, but we've had just
Yeah,
3 or 4
perfect.
cars pull up at a time, and, it's just really been a smooth operation, so.
I'm very, very appreciative by the people.
Sure, definitely. Okay, next section dealing with teachers. As you may have or may not have heard, the governor announced this afternoon that schools will remain closed until May 1st of 2020. So tomorrow, we have scheduled a meeting with the administrative team, and then I'll also be discussing with TLCTO to determine if we're going to use our waiver days until this time. We are currently permitted 20 instructional waiver days, and what that means is that within the state of Indiana, all students are required to have 180 instructional days. So the governor at this point in time has said, well, I'm going to waive 20 of those days. In the news briefing today, we may get some additional waivers coming with that, because I think, as John and I were talking before the meeting, there are some corporations out there that do not have e-learning at all. And so once again, we're blessed as a corporation that we have this tool that we're able to use. So if you will pull this calendar, the high school administrative team worked to come up with this calendar. last week, kind of when we were starting to think that this was gonna be where we were headed at. And then they shared it with the other principals and with me on Friday as I traveled around to each of the buildings, talking to the principals about what was gonna be happening. And this takes us all the way down to the end of the school year, if that would happen. But you can see that it kind of does, after next week, going into the week of April 6th, it kind of rotates back and forth between red days and white days. So therefore, there's a balance there between the classes. And then following 4 days, you then have either 2 waiver days, or like, for example, you have, after the week of April 6th, you've got Good Friday, and then we were gonna be off that Monday anyway. So it's mainly 4 days on, and then 2 waiver days. We're going to discuss this schedule tomorrow with the principals, and then as well, discuss it with TLCTO. Or do we want to just say, we're gonna use waiver days all the way down to May 1st? And we do have enough waiver days to do that. So I'll let the board know about that. Some of the reason why we see that is already our e-learning's dropping off. And I think some of the reason why is because people are beginning to think that we're not gonna return to school. And, grades aren't gonna, may or may not matter, and those kinds of things. So we don't wanna add any undue stress to our families. But at the same time, we want to continue, as Gloria well knows, we don't want our kids to be behind. So it's definitely a concern there. I think even if we would go and say we want to have waiver days all the way to May 1st, I would still hope that our teachers would just provide some fun activities to our kids, just to continue to read or whatever it might be that they're doing. So, but
It's too far down the road, but do we know anything about graduation yet?
that's on my list.
Thank you.
I'll get down there.
I
So-
guess, and just as I look at this calendar, the thing that I like about it, and I know it's subject for discussion, but if we're closed down for the rest of the year and granted no additional waiver days, which I don't think is probable, we still fulfill our obligations to have the appropriate number of instructional days, and our kids can, with a clean conscience and the best preparation we can give them, go into the 2021 school year.
And you gotta feel sorry for our seniors,
Absolutely.
Yep.
of all years, your senior year.
If I'm correct, I think this one here, if I remember right, we still had 2 days left with this. I don't think we used the full 18, or full 20, I think we just used 18. This kind of comes to what John was asking earlier. Principals notified teachers yesterday to report and clean off their desks, remove personal items to expedite the disinfecting process for custodians next week. So
That's
just
4
kind of
custodians next week, probably kind of dropped off in some
dropped
people's
off. We got a
minds.
few that were planning vacation next
Right.
week, and I said, that's fine. The other thing too, that we kind of began preparing for this about 2 weeks ago. We created a page on our website, I don't know if you've seen that or not, dealing with coronavirus. I also asked Marcus to begin compiling a page for teachers of resources, and he began pushing out several things as well. We also, I think, he pushed out to parents a list of websites that were free to parents, that were educational, kind of games or software, those kinds of things. And so we continue to add to that site throughout this process. The other thing too, that I think we're way far along the road on this, is, because I know I've talked to some other schools that were just doing e-learning, and they said they've had to bring their teachers in during this time to do PD. Marcus, one of his goals for this year was to strengthen our e-learning. And so like the Loom video that you've probably seen a lot of teachers using, that was one of the things that he rolled out back in the fall with teachers, and he did training sessions in all the schools on that. So I think that has definitely improved our instruction. It has actually allowed our kids to see their teachers, to see some activities. I know my wife last night did with Zeke, and Ella was filming it, did some sort of like little car made out of a water bottle, and they were doing time trials and stuff like that the kids then use. I know John was saying that Ashley is having a good time, and the 2 babies are participating in it too. So I think teachers are having fun with it. And I don't know how much you guys have been on Facebook here lately, but our teachers are reading books to kids. Mrs. Lingenfelter last night had her rode on and read a bedtime story to her kids. So, I forgot to start off, but this has been phenomenal, and we've been so blessed in this community. And to see how our people have come together and worked as a team, and if I start crying, guys, I'm sorry. It's been emotional watching our people do this for our kids.
Betty White even read a book last night on Facebook.
Yes, I saw that. So, but this has been great. This has really been great.
Carrie George, I've seen her quite a bit.
Yeah.
She's really comfortable with that,
Yeah.
so it's really,
So it's just been
We
great.
have a great group of people, and I know, I can't say enough good things about them. They all pull together when the need be. And it's all for the great of our kids.
It is. And if you walked in yesterday when we were making those food packets, I mean, everybody was working hard.
Well, and even standing out in the rain, handing it out, I mean, that says a lot too.
Yeah. So
We don't even have time to set the tents up to
Yeah.
get the food hand distributed.
we're a little bit drier today. So, Mrs. Berger, as I said, streamlined the process to provide weekly food packets through only one distribution beginning on Monday. The other thing that we really wanted to do was provide 3 different locations because we know that some of our kids that they have transportation issues. So not Monday, but Monday, March 30th, we're going to have 3 distributions, one at Roosevelt, one at Idaville Church of God, and then we've also gotten permission to do one at Hollow Acres Golf Course. So, so next week, the online form will have where do you want to pick your food up, and so that will be how that will be handled. The other thing too is as I just shared with you about Frontier, in all these situations, we're still having to follow Department of Education guidelines, USDA guidelines. So these things haven't been relaxed that much. We're still having to jump through hoops and things like that. So, like for example, we talked about the bus routes and possibly running on bus routes. You had to actually have a waiver to be able to do that from the government to do that. But yet, Deb and I talked about it, and she, I asked her, I said, what do you think about this? And she told me, she said, I really feel like our bus drivers, a lot of them are in that high risk category because of either age or health conditions, and we just didn't feel comfortable putting them in that position of running the bus routes. So we feel like that this, and even at that, our people who are passing lunches out are taking safety precautions. They've got a cart, they roll the cart up to the car, and they ask the person in the car to reach out and
We
pull the
can't
bags
have
in.
food. I see.
Yeah.
Question, if I may.
Yes.
Since we're doing Idaville Church of God, why couldn't we just do it at Eastlawn? That way it's in the middle of Idaville and Burnetsville.
We
So
could
the
do that.
people, from the people of Burnetsville won't have to come all the way
Yeah.
into Idaville.
You don't have anyone that can, there's a small subdivision that can walk there. I take your point, you'd be halfway between the two, but you would really limit your foot traffic access to some of those kids. It certainly leaves Burnetsville with the transportation
Right.
issue. That would be, and it's certainly something worth trying, but that's the only downside that I see is you've got, other than that one small subdivision south of the school, it's at least a half a mile for anyone else and to walk there, but worth considering.
Do you want me to check into that?
I would like to be,
Okay.
consider it.
Okay. I
You
will.
might be able to rotate too.
Right.
And what I'll probably do is talk to Casey to kind of see where she feels like the biggest need is for her family.
Because I don't want to have Burnetsville come all the way and have to come, if we could go
Right.
centralize some.
Barring that, you might, if you end up at the Idaville Church of God, then you might use the beehive on the next route,
Okay,
so that. you-
Sure.
so maybe alternate it.
Yeah,
That would be a possibility, I'm just saying that would be a possibility.
right, good idea, yeah.
that's a good idea, because East Lawn is,
It's just not foot traffic accessible.
and
for
I don't know
very
how many
many
young
kids.
children are there anymore. I don't know what the population in that little subdivision is.
10, 15 maybe.
I know that's been an issue, of even having an area out there of, a security issue of where to go to out there. so.
Mhm.
Ms. Metzger is going to be working with Mrs. Berger, organizing volunteers and scheduling food drops in the 3 locations following spring break. So she's going to be heading that up for me. Right now, she is quarantined, so I'm not sure if all of you guys heard about that, but her friend, one of his coworkers, possibly has it, so he's being tested, so hopefully he'll be released and everybody will be fine, so. Okay, schedule. The principals all agree that the first week back from spring break, we would use waiver days. No one will be permitted in the buildings at this time. This will provide our educators time to plan. I'm in communication with the other White County superintendents as well, because we've all been talking quite a bit. At this time, the plan is to return the week of April 6th to an e-learning schedule. I'll provide an update to the school board following tomorrow's meeting with the administrative team. So we'll talk to them and kind of see what they want to do at that time.
Is the reason that no one will be permitted in the buildings, I mean, for example, if we want to go in and work on stuff with the student food pantry, would we be allowed in or prevented from like we were the last time?
So you guys over there at Woodlawn could possibly go back in, that's fine. The schools, what we're trying to do, and talking to Chief Lingenfelter, is he said, if we get them disinfected, we don't want to have to reinfect them. So that's what we're trying to do, is minimize as much traffic in there as possible. So we were originally looking at just those 2 weeks after spring break in case people left for spring break and then came back. That would then allow us to at least have that 14-day self-quarantine. So I think that was also some reasoning too. Coming back to John's, just got a question about commencement. At this time, and I want to stress this, at this time we have not canceled commencement. Okay? This is an important time in our seniors' lives, and we want to honor all their work they've completed during their K-12 education. Now, we may need to postpone it, but we will continue to monitor the situation. So, keep in mind our commencement, I think, was scheduled the first week in June. So we've got a good while to that. But Missy and I have already talked about that even if we have to postpone it to like July or something like that, we feel like that this is important for our kids to have this. So, any other questions on that? Okay. The administrative team scheduled a standing meeting going forward on Thursday afternoons at 1:00 p.m. beginning next week through Zoom video conferencing. This will permit all departments of the corporation to continue communication in case we are sheltered in place. This will also permit us time to make preparations for the following week if needed. That's why we scheduled it on Thursdays, to mainly make preparations for that next week. Another area of where the federal government is still being very strict on their guidelines and stuff is special education. Mrs. McElrath is addressing the special education concerns. At this point, we're still being held to requirements for our conferences, for testing by the federal government. We're hoping that this will soon be relaxed. So we were really hoping this afternoon we hear something on the governor's news conference, but we've not heard anything yet. And all of that's dictated by the federal government underneath the IDEA. So, okay, any questions on that? Okay, school board meetings. So tonight we're video uplink. So based upon the governor's guidance, we need to discuss how we would like to proceed with working sessions in our regular school board meetings. As you know, they talked about trying to keep things to very essential items and stuff. So we wanted to open it up. Shane and I had some conversations. Shane, do you kind of want to share your thoughts on the situation?
So I know we've benefited from the working sessions as a way to expedite the regular board meetings. However, a lot of the month-to-month business that we've had to sign off on, personnel, paying bills, etc., is going to be proceeding in a very different environment. I would propose that we try and seek clarity either through our email updates or through a video conference if people say that they're still not comfortable with something that's going to be on the agenda and would like to talk about it face-to-face, if you will. And then if it pleases everyone else, then we can continue with our YouTube broadcasts of the board meeting so that we can allow the public in that way. But I am open to discussion at this time. I just don't see the need with health being such a concern for us to get together twice a month.
And ISBA, I think you all probably received those emails from ISBA. They have provided direction that one member is all that's required to be here, but everyone else can remote in if we want to get to that point. And there's some other things that I'm going to share that's not on my notes that just came through this afternoon of some other steps that we can do too. So,
is everyone comfortable with attempting to get the clarity we normally get through working sessions via email, if possible, and then through video conferencing if additional clarification is required?
I think we try it.
Yeah, I mean.
I think
this
we'll
thing's
try
so
video
fluid,
conferencing
we'll just
sounds
have to
good.
see.
Absolutely. And Mr. Milligan made the comment, this is fluid. What we decide tonight could be changed tomorrow. So let's give it our best shot through email and then video conferencing, and we'll go with this format of the YouTube broadcast for the April meeting.
Connected in with that.
One question though, on the email, are you talking about, for example, if I have a question about something, I could direct it back to, say, you and Mr. Galvin, but not necessarily to everyone, right? Because open door policy, wouldn't we be violating open door policy if we did that?
I'm not sure that email is covered under open door, but I would say if you have a question that you feel would benefit from the whole board discussing it, or you want everyone's input, at that point I would say skip the email and let's go to the video conference, just for our clarity. If it's something that you think Mr. Galvin can resolve, you read the minutes or the proposed agenda and you don't understand one item, check with him, see
Or
if he
you
can
just have
resolve.
something you want to, yeah, because we've done that before, and
Sure.
I'm sure the rest of you have too. You see something on the agenda and say something, Mr.
Right.
Galvin. I usually
You.
try, if I remember, I try to courtesy copy Shane since he is president. So,
Sure.
And what I'm gonna be focusing on in our monthly meetings is mainly essential items. So things to finish out this school year and things that are key to get next year started smoothly. So that's kind of what we're gonna do. I mean, like textbook adoptions right now, we were waiting on them to finish it up. They were waiting on meetings, so that's off the table right now. So there's some things like that are just gonna fall by the wayside.
Sure.
Now, the other thing that I would like for us to do tonight, and we received this today from the State Board of Accounts, and this is more or less what I would like, and you don't have a copy of this. So this is from the State Examiner Memorandums titled Policy Regarding Coronavirus dated March 12, 2020, and Coronavirus Items to Consider dated March 16, 2020, are hereby incorporated by reference into this directive. During the time of this public health emergency, local governmental units may need to adjust normal procedures for the timely deposit of funds and the approval of claims. The State Board of Accounts will not take audit exception to the following alternative procedures for the timely deposit of funds or the approval of claims. Timely deposit of funds. Indiana Code 5-13-6-1 governs the procedure for the deposit of public funds and is still in effect during this time of emergency. However, the State Board of Accounts will not take audit exception if the governing board approves the frequency for deposit of public funds to be limited to 2 times per week. The approval of the governing body must state that the deposits will be made on Tuesday and Thursday and require the public funds to be secured on those days when a deposit is not made. As always, proper internal controls must be in place to safeguard the assets of the unit. So mainly what this is saying is that if Kim can't make it in to deposit monies on a regular basis, that the board is saying that yes, we will make sure that she deposits on at least Tuesdays and Thursdays. The other thing is and I think that this is something else, and what my recommendation for this next one is that your financial board members be granted permission to approve this, not together in case one of them are sick, but at least individually. And this is approval of claims. Indiana Code 5-11-10 governs the claim approval process and is still in effect during this time of emergency. However, the State Board of Accounts will not take audit exception if the governing board uses the following procedures. The governing board may designate one of its members to approve claims for payment in advance of board allowance. The board must allow those claims at its first meeting after the public health emergency has ended. So what that means is that if we do not, for some reason, have a meeting, in other words, let's say that we don't have a quorum, everyone's sick, but yet one of our board members can come in, or finance board members can come in and approve those claims. At our next board meeting, after the health emergency has ended, those claims would come to the full board. Okay? So mainly what you'd be doing is granting Shane and Mike, I think, that authority to come in and approve those claims. For those units of government which have statutory authority to adopt an ordinance for the pre-approved payment of claims, the board may provide written approval to the fiscal officer to pay certain claims during the public health emergency. The board must allow those claims at its first meeting after the emergency has ended. And we do have, the board has already given the rights for Kim to do some prepayment of some of our claims, because like, electric bills, those kinds of things, we don't want to. So that is something that just came through this afternoon, or this evening, right as I was walking out of that. And like I said, my recommendation is that Shane and Mike would be granted to approve those claims if for some reason the board could not meet.
Do we need to vote on
I
that?
think I would encourage you to vote on that, yes.
You've heard the recommendation that the two members of the finance team, which would be myself and Mr. Godlove, be allowed to provisionally approve claims in the event of a health emergency, and those claims would, at the first regularly scheduled board meeting after the emergency is over, come before the full board. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Gloria. Second. Thank you, Moria. And properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries 6-0.
Maury, you seconded?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I took notes for you. I got it on YouTube.
All right. So community partnerships. I am participating in daily briefings with White County EMA, as well as other, I think every agency in the county is on there. So I am participating in that, sharing with them what we are doing as a corporation and stuff. So in addition, as I stated earlier, I'm working with the other White County superintendents. And of course, we're in constant communication with the Department of Education. TLCTO is working closely with us too. We're keeping them in the loop. Our principals, all the departments within the corporation. So, do you have any questions this evening?
I do, on the administrative team meetings, as you meet with them tomorrow, Mr. Galvin, I would just ask that you query them to say, okay, things seem to be rapidly changing, and would there be a way for you to be able to call ad hoc meetings on that?
Yes.
So that, I appreciate once a week, but I'm foreseeing the possibility.
So, like for example, tomorrow's meeting is an ad hoc meeting.
Okay,
So after the governor's announcement this afternoon, I wanted to meet with the principals ASAP to figure out what's our schedule going to look like, so that we can get that out too. So at this point in time, that 1 o'clock, that's the standing meeting. But yes,
this would
if
be a
we-
minimum.
That would be a minimum. If there's more emergency situations, because we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure they're getting a lot of questions from parents and
Yeah.
staff and things, and it's always best if you can communicate with them one time. And you're saying through this Zoom methodology, you could call one of these, was it Zoom or Loom or
Zoom.
Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could call this and basically say, okay, let's rally the troops here for
Yeah.
15 minutes and.
Yeah. So like tomorrow, one of our principals is not able to make it, so therefore she's going to come in through Zoom
Okay,
so that she can provide input
Good.
into that.
good, okay, thank you.
One bit of housekeeping that I should have announced at the beginning is that with this non-traditional form of a public meeting, we do still take Open Door very seriously. That's why we're broadcasting. This doesn't really offer us the opportunity to have hearing of patrons' concerns from the crowd. Mr. Galvin and our IT team came up with the solution. If you have questions for the board or commentary about anything that you would normally present to a school board meeting, you may leave it in the comments below the YouTube video, and that'll be prepared and sent to the central office or to the board. Or you have the option of emailing Ms. Metzger directly, and her email address will be in the description for this video. So just wanted the public to be aware that even though we can't have you here in person, we do still value your input, and we do still believe in and honor Open Door.
With that, why couldn't we, if somebody has a question, why couldn't they call in from on speakerphone?
We could.
We could. I would suppose we would probably limit that to the normal hearing patrons' time, but that's another opportunity, absolutely. And I guess this would be also a good time for me to give a tip of the hat to our IT department. This meeting was put on about 40 hours ago. We had the opportunity to just declare it an emergency meeting, not provide the technology, and that would have been legal and within proper bounds. Instead, they worked with central office, and we have this opportunity.
We need to be out in the public, we need the public to see what we're talking about and don't keep
Absolutely.
anything from them.
Absolutely. But I appreciate them throwing this together and doing such an excellent job of it on such short notice. We've had a lot of our folks, all of our folks really, who have had the opportunity to serve the school and the community in very non-traditional ways for what they were hired for. Thank you all
I
very
just want
much.
to kind of go back through a couple of things. Number one, I think the medal law concern was.
It was addressed.
Okay, that was addressed.
None, right?
Check about serving other corporations.
Yes.
Food packets. We also talked about the food distribution out towards Idaville, Burnensville, whether we wanted to use East Lawn or could we alternate between Idaville and Burnensville. And then.
I'd say we probably have a lot more kids coming from the Idaville area, don't we?
Well,
Do you have to choose?
You don't necessarily have to.
That
We can
becomes
run
a-
two. I think some of the concern, I think also too, is as this begins to ramp up, how is our staff gonna stay with us?
you certainly don't have to choose, Jeff, but it's worth noting that we serve a very wide geographic area. There's a lot of kids in Idaville. You see them out playing. There's still quite a few in Burnsville. There's plenty of them that have, no city affiliation whatsoever. Certainly no reason we can't expand one more unit, but we have to cut off somewhere. I don't think
Right.
we need to have a food drop in Sleep.
No.
But
But we will check into that.
Sure.
We'll investigate it.
flexibility.
Anything else?
I have no other items at this time. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
The only thing that I would like to address is plain and simple, I know we're in uncharted ground. Maybe better communications and
My goal is to communicate with you on a daily basis now.
not just necessarily us, but your administrators and everybody. I understand that we're on uncharted ground.
Sure.
And I know there were so many different things going on in so many different ways. I mean, no offense to you, but something happens to you, our assistant superintendent needs to know what's going on, or somebody needs to, we all need to share what's going on.
Right, sure. And I know even this afternoon, I was talking to Deb and I was sharing things with her because I said, look, Deb, you need to know this information. Because I said,
Exactly.
if I get sick, you're gonna be the one making these decisions.
Exactly, that's,
Yeah,
let's work together,
Yeah.
we're a team, and there's no I in team, let's work together.
yeah. I thank you for that, John.
Other questions or concerns?
I would like to know more about what they decide as far as the waiver days and the e-learning days. I know that
You
e-learning.
mean the principals tomorrow?
Yes, because I know that e-learning wanes and there are students who may not want it, but then there are also those families who really want to make sure their children aren't missing
Right.
anything. So you have different, I mean, I think all families want that, but I think we need to think about that. And it doesn't have to be the traditional book learning, it can be other learning opportunities.
What are our options there though? I mean, can that be optional?
Yeah.
I wondered about that too.
We've discussed, if by some chance we do grades, do we do a pass-fail? Do we just, is it optional? Those kinds of things. And one of the other concerns that the principals had was we have probably about 200 kids that are taking paper packets. And once this virus gets ramped up, of those viruses that, coming back on those papers and the teachers grading them and stuff. But I think what I would like to see happen is kind of like what you said, Gloria, that we're still offering activities. There may not be a grade there connected to it, but at least people can still continue to do it if they so choose
Opportunities
do
to
it.
learn, whether
Yeah,
it's
that's
taking their
exactly
own field trip with their family to the park and looking for the different environmental habitats that animals have, that type of thing.
I don't know who said it earlier though, but I know it was mentioned that this is gonna add a lot of stress for people that aren't accustomed to being at home for a long period of time. And adding another layer of requirement may not be good for the whole. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
I mean, we're looking at probably 2 months. Everybody seems pretty happy today. I'll be interested to see what it looks like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we just probably need to monitor the,
Stress level?
yeah, I don't know, even know what, just take some informal polls of how it's going because,
We've also traditionally, with the longest previous chunk of e-learning that I'm aware of, Maury, I think.
5 days since I've
No.
been here.
So we had 13 e-learning days in about a 3-week period the first year they were adopted. But 5 or 6 consecutive was the most. And on the 5th day, the completion rates dropped like a hot rock.
Well, but Mr. Galvin commented on earlier, they're already starting to drop.
Yes, and I think that's, and Dr. Fletcher started using just straight up snow days to say, it's a day off, go be kids, come back on Monday, we gotta do something. You know, I think our staff is capable of monitoring completion rates, 9 or 10 of these in a row. I only know 6th grade math so well. I might need a break by then. So I think that's going to be.
And for some of our teachers to be expected to get their kids to do 100%, they don't even do 100% in the classroom.
No, we have to be creative that
Yes,
way.
sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
they will be. I have confidence in our.
Yeah, so, but yes, I plan to send you all an email tomorrow after our meeting, to let you know what we've discussed, what our decision is. And then, there's gonna be, I'm gonna send out another Loom video this evening when I get home, and then we'll send another one out tomorrow as well.
That's, the communication's good, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Are you coming up short on any resources or support? Yeah.
Don't wait for our next regularly scheduled meeting to tell us if that changes.
I will. That's why I feel like I wanna give you guys, at least during the regular work week, daily emails, if it's nothing, just to say things are going well,
Right,
so.
and kudos to our staff and everyone.
And to you as well, Mr. Galvin.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I would reiterate, though, we're second to your administrators.
I agree.
Yeah.
Very much so.
My administrators, we had a great meeting on Wednesday. I mean, we wanted to get through the first wave, and then the meeting on Wednesday was mainly to say, okay, what does this look like after spring break? As we begin to really settle into this.
And it just goes right along to show how much they come together.
They do.
They do.
We've got some great people. Some really good, I mean, the thing is together we're better.
That's right.
Together we're better.
But they're the first line that the parents and the community come to. It's not into this building.
Yeah.
This is the central
Yeah.
office. It's right there with that
Yeah.
principal.
All fingers off of it.
Yeah.
Need a
At this
motion?
point, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Second.
Sure.
Thank you, Jeff. Properly moved and seconded that we adjourn this
Safe
meeting.
to everyone, God bless you.
All those in favor,
Be safe.
please signify by saying aye. Opposed, the same. We stand adjourned.
Who made the motion?
Bye.
Mr. Godlow made the motion and Jeff seconded it. Carried 6-0.
Thank you,
Are you gonna?
Herman.
You gotta rework this form?
We're
or
still
just-
live,
Yes, they, Herman, thank you.
just so you know.
You gonna edit the form, or you just gonna pin it in, change my name and Scott's name?
And we're out.